play a short video about Sage Advice.
Sage Advice for a Better Life. We are a 24/7, 365 days online counseling portal. We provide wholesome guidance and support to people in times of need. With a panel of qualified and experienced counselors available around the clock to listen, understand, and guide you through. Sage Advice is a social enterprise driven by its vision of a happier society and people leading empowered, richer, and fulfilling lives. We strive every day to help you navigate through life with lesser stress and worry. Our general counseling vertical is very well complemented by wellness and life coaching. Our life and wellness coaches, also available all the time, are constantly inspiring you to strive and to be the best version of yourself. Sage Advice has a core belief that all aspects of human life must function well together, like, like an orchestra where all instruments are in perfect harmony. With this view, we offer career counseling for students both at school and at the college level. Our career counselors also bring several years of experience and astute judgment to help you navigate through career change, countering work stress, and help make strategic decisions if you contemplate a career shift. Sage Advice is all about self improvement, growth, and healing, be it the body, mind, or your relationships. We help you break barriers, fight complexes, overcome fears, shame, and vulnerability to forge ahead with extreme confidence and claim a better life.
A very good evening to all our viewers. I'm Pallavi Khanna from Team Sage Advice. We bring to you part two of the webinar on understanding addictions and recovery. In part one, we went through some very, very important and pertinent questions related to addictions. We tried to understand what addiction was, what were the different kinds of addictions, who is an addict, who is vulnerable to addiction, how can you identify an addict in the family, and how can you help such a person? What were the signs and symptoms that had to be looked for to in order to understand that a person in your family needs help? Uh, Also, the very, very important question that is addiction, caused by heredity? Is it a gene or is it circumstances? One saw how from exploration, from just experimenting, with your peers to becoming an addict. Sometimes it was a journey of many months or years, and sometimes it was just a matter of weeks. And once one throughout this entire process, one sees how one grapples, how one struggles within one's own mind, and how this was supposed to be treated as a disease and not a behavioral issue. And then we also wanted to touch upon what is the road to recovery, what is the path to recovery. And that is the reason that we decided to have a part two to discuss the very, very important question of, is it possible to recover, and is it possible to even recover after a relapse? So, to address these very, very important and pertinent questions, we have two experts with us today. We have Shilpa Chandavarkar, who's the panel counselor with Sage Advice, and we have Dr. Manjeet Saini, who is a de-addiction expert. He's a psychiatrist practicing in Jalandhar. So, welcome to Shilpa and Dr. Saini. And I request Shilpa now to please take over the proceedings.
Yeah. Uh, Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for this lovely introduction, Pallavi. So, as you said, that we looked at different aspects of addiction, what addiction is, and how it happens, what are different stages. So, taking that topic further in today's webinar, we will be focusing more on recovery, what recovery is and what different approaches are there, and what tools would definitely work in helping someone recover, and how does one maintain recovery and prevent a relapse. And we will be focusing more on how recovery takes place and how they can maintain recovery. So to begin with, there are different approaches how one recovers. So first is abstinence. As we हमने देखा कि last webinar में अलग अलग type के addictions we looked at. Some are very intense and some are difficult to get recover quickly, and some are slightly relatively easier to recover from. But there are two main approaches that are used all over the world. And first is abstinence, जिसको बोलते हैं कि पूरी तरह से पीना या यूज करना बंद कर देना, like बिल्कुल छूना भी नहीं है, complete abstinence. So that is possible when you have support, some kind of you are taking some kind of support from doctors, uh, you are doing a detox, or you have uh, taking treatment basically in an institute and you have some support. Abstinence is possible then. Otherwise it's a bit difficult. So real life may, if one doesn't want to get admitted or doesn't want a long term rehab, then there's something called harm reduction. Harm reduction is basically you reduce the use. अगर कोई एक बोतल दो बोतल अल्कोहल कंज्यूम कर रहा है तो उनको स्लोली रिड्यूस करने के लिए बोलना है. So वो they can go to one bottle, and then they slowly they can reduce to couple of drinks, maybe reduce the frequency in which they have it or use it. So that really helps, because stopping suddenly might have a severe sort of a withdrawals, which would be bit unmanageable if they don't have any support around. So reducing the quantity and frequency is one approach. We could also look at helping someone by telling them not to mix, because mixing two substances like alcohol and cocaine, mixing these two substances can not only be dangerous but they can be life threatening as well. So educating them about these things, and also route of administration. If someone's injecting, then maybe look at explore different options where they can smoke or consume rather than inject, because injecting would mean infections, nerve damage, many other things related to injecting. So exploring other routes to start with could be very, very helpful. Also, we also could advise individuals who are injecting that see to it that you have someone for help around in case there's a drug overdose or anything. See if you have any help around and they are aware that you are going through this issue. So this is how you can reduce the effect of drug use or substance use or alcohol use, by reducing it, not mixing it, and exploring different alternatives. Now what would definitely work? Now when we talk about recovery, we have to know what will work, what would be the definite way out of this issue. So that's firstly, these are sure ways of uh, recovery is firstly counseling, different forms of counseling, especially cognitive behavior therapy, rational emotive behavior therapy, long-term psychotherapy definitely helps. Along with that, a detox, medications, rehabilitation, these definitely help someone recover. I would focus here on a multi-agency, multidisciplinary intervention where you have doctors, therapists, counselors, sometimes social workers, employment agencies even, because many people are unemployed, because of which they continue using or drinking. So I would encourage someone to have a multi disciplinary intervention. सिर्फ साइकोलॉजिस्ट को या सिर्फ डॉक्टर से मिलके ये सॉल्व नहीं होने वाला है. अगर ये बहुत ज्यादा टाइम से इश्यू है तो ये सारे लोगों का टीम वर्क बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो आई वुड एनकरेज एवरीवन टू लुक एट दिस एस्पेक्ट आल्सो. इंडिविजुअल एंड फैमिली, बहुत बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि पर्सन को शेम किया जाता है कि you are such a disgrace to our family, और हमारे फैमिली में ऐसा कोई नहीं है जो इस तरह से बात किया जाता है और इस तरह की बातें होती है फैमिलीज में. एंड फैमिली somehow feel that कि हम तो ठीक है, ये इसी का सब प्रॉब्लम है, इसी पर्सन की वजह से प्रॉब्लम है. अगर उनके फैमिली में कोई ये इश्यू से गुजर रहा है तो ये बहुत ही नेगेटिव चीज है. ये रिकवरी को रिवर्स करेगी. सो आई वुड से दैट कि अगर वो पर्सन ट्रीटमेंट ले रहा है, काउंसलिंग ले रहा है, तो फैमिली को भी काउंसलिंग या इंटरवेंशन लेना ही है, क्योंकि ये पूरा टीम वर्क होता है और इसमें फैमिली रिलेशनशिप्स का बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले होता है. There's a massive research that says that individuals who have a healthy family relationships and healthy family environment are better able to recover and maintain recovery than people who don't have a healthy family relationship. There's a massive research on that. So family relations, every member of the family needs to see counselor, needs to talk to doctors, interact with different kind of professionals. Last point would be peer support groups. There are mutual aid peer support groups.
Individual and family intervention.
I can hear someone speaking, so yeah. So peer support groups, Alcoholic Anonymous है या Narcotic Anonymous है, Cocaine Anonymous, Al-Anon करके ये भी एक support group होता है. Almost every city, every town में ये होता है. तो family members as well as the person who has this problem needs to go to these support groups regularly. In fact, if they stop going, there's a high chance of relapse. So these are different tools and different ways in which one can recover from addiction, and these definitely work. So now major part would be, how do we maintain the recovery once it's happened? We know that okay, I've remained sober for a long time, मैंने पीना छोड़ दिया है, अभी बहुत टाइम हो गया है मैं नहीं पिया हूँ, या फिर ऐसा कोई है जो रिहैब से अभी बाहर आ गया है, रिहैब कर लिया है. अभी रिकवरी को मेंटेन करना भी बहुत चैलेंजिंग हो सकता है. इनफैक्ट द मोस्ट चैलेंजिंग इज maintaining that recovery. So one has to understand a relapse, what a relapse is, what all things can lead to a relapse, and how they can prevent, having some plan over there, some support, and how they can maintain recovery by preventing relapse needs to be discussed and needs to be there before this person leaves the rehab. So understanding a relapse is very crucial. Common warning reasons for relapse also needs to be known, and this person needs to be educated about what are those common warning signs or reasons because of which one could relapse. Understanding triggers, what are triggers and what are their own triggers that would lead to use. Managing high risk situations, understanding cravings and how they can manage cravings is a huge part of maintaining recovery. So relapse, as we discussed, relapse is when one stops using, but then maybe goes back to drinking. जैसे कि कोई है कि 2 or 3 months का रिहैब कर लिया, रिहैब में तो अलाउड नहीं होता है, कई सारे रिहैब्स में इजीली एब्सटेन कर सकते हैं, बट जैसे ही रिहैब से बाहर आ जाते हैं, रियल लाइफ में आ जाते हैं, वही सारे लोग, वही सारे स्ट्रेसर्स, वही फैमिली होगी, तो कुछ चेंज होने वाला नहीं है इन द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड. So how does one maintain that? So one has to look at relapse prevention as a major thing in the recovery. So रिलैप्स यही है कि आपने बहुत टाइम तक पीना छोड़ दिया है, यूज करना छोड़ दिया है, लेकिन फिर से फॉर सम रीजन यूज करना शुरू करते। तो रिलैप्स का वन थिंग आई वुड से दैट इट्स नॉट दैट कि आपने एक बार सोबर हो गए, आपने छोड़ दिया तो आप फिर कभी यूज नहीं करेंगे, ऐसा नहीं होता है। इन रियल लाइफ रिलैप्सेस होते हैं, रिलैप्सेस ये बहुत कॉमन, in fact it's a part and parcel of your recovery. So relapses happen, and every relapse has something to learn. Every relapse is a learning, and then one eventually maintains recovery. So it's not necessary that of course there are people who come out of rehab and they never use again, and they are able to sustain their recovery forever. But then there are many people who cannot, and it's normal, it's natural, and it happens. It's a part of your recovery. Understand relapse in this way. So so what happens is in real life, ऐसा कोई है जो रिहैब से अभी बाहर आ गए हैं और काफी टाइम के लिए यूज नहीं किया है, या फिर खुद से ही छोड़ दिया है और अभी नहीं पीना चाहते हैं, नहीं पी रहे हैं, but फिर भी there are so many other emotional issues. One could have guilt, one could have sadness, one could be sad because they are not finding employment, one could be sad because they've had a breakup, or any other stressors which can lead to an emotional breakdown. So one needs to watch out for these signs. Any kind of emotional stressor and any kind of emotional breakdown could make one think that I need to get over this by drinking. I need to get rid of this tension, this sadness by using. I need my fix is what they feel. So ये person mentally already सोच रहा है use करने के लिए, right? Relapse immediately नहीं होता है, first mentally होता है फिर actual use होता है. So mental level पे ही अगर उसको prevent किया जा सकता है तो actual use नहीं होगा. So mental level पे ही उसको arrest करना है. So first it will be emotional, then you will think of using. Oh, when do I go? I need to have one drink at least. I just can't take it. Life is too stressful for me. Everything is just going down the drain. I'm not experiencing happiness. I need to drink. I need my fix right now. So one mentally feels that is the solution to all life problems or emotional stressors or psychological stressors. One thinks of using, and then they actually go and use or drink. So this is how a relapse takes place. It doesn't happen right away. It's because of some emotional issue. Then they start thinking of using as a solution to certain things, or they constantly thinking about it. So हो सकता है कि ये दिन में एक आध बार ख्याल आ जाए कि यार एक 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 ग्लास तो एक पैक तो बनता है, फिर ये फ्रीक्वेंसी थिंकिंग की बढ़ जाती है। ये दिन में 10 टाइम्स ये ख्याल आने लगता है, और 10 टाइम्स जब ख्याल आता है तो एक्चुअल यूज करने की पॉसिबिलिटी बहुत ज्यादा होती है। सो क्या क्या ऐसे रीजंस है, क्या क्या ऐसे चीजें हैं जो रिलैप्स की तरफ लेके जा सकती है? फर्स्टली, बीइंग इन प्रेजेंस ऑफ people who use or drink. This is the first thing that they need to be educated, and one needs to be aware that if I go back to that friend circle of mine that drinks, people are not going to change. People are not going to leave alcohol or drugs for you. So that one needs to understand that I have changed, but my friends haven't, my peers haven't. So I need to be away from them. So being in presence of anyone who uses or drinks is could lead one to a relapse. So avoid those groups, avoid those circles. Negative feelings, emotions, as I said earlier, negative feelings, stressors can lead one to drink or use again. There could also be a positive feelings that, oh, finally I got a job, or I have to drink today because it's a reason for me to celebrate. Finally, the lockdown is over and I need to drink. So it could be also that they feel like celebrating, and that first drink would do all the damage. Like this is just a mundane example, but अगर अगर आप एक वाटरमेलन रेल ट्रैक पे रख देते हो, तो जैसे ही that watermelon hits the train, first wheel itself shatters it. Next wheels are just going to go over it, right? So in case of a relapse, that first drink, that first use is going to shatter you. So one needs to be aware of that fact as well. So another most important factor is boredom. Nothing to look forward to. I'm not busy. I'm sitting at home. I have nothing to do. Bore हो रहा है. I want to drink. I want. So cravings भी बहुत ज़्यादा हो सकती है when one is bored, doesn't have anything to do. Any sort of physical pain can also lead to a relapse. It's quite common. Suddenly having a lot of cash. Suddenly पैसे आ गए हैं. अभी तो बहुत tempt हो रहा है कि I just need to go and have a drink. So this can also lead to a relapse. Believing that you're cured and you don't need any help at all is, I would say, number one warning sign of a relapse, that मैं ठीक हो गया हूँ, मुझे कोई help की जरूरत नहीं है. तो ये बहुत बड़ा warning sign है कि शायद relapse is just around the corner. Understanding triggers is a huge part of preventing relapse, because you need to totally avoid these things, right? Because trigger का meaning ये है कि it will lead to you drinking, it will lead to use, it will lead to drinking. So avoid all the places, people, things. Why things? Maybe आपके घर में still वो एक आपका favorite mug है या favorite glass है, या आपके पास लाइटर है, या कोई जो ऐसी चीजें हैं जो आप ड्रिंक या यूज करने के लिए करते थे, वो अभी भी दे आर लाइंग अराउंड द हाउस, एंड दीज ऑब्जेक्ट्स और थिंग्स could induce sort of intense cravings, and then you might use. So just throw these things out of your house and do not have these things around you. Emotions, watch out for any kind of negative, positive emotions as well. They could play a huge role in triggering a intense craving and eventually you using. High risk situations are simply situations where you are very likely to use or drink. Now, what are those kinds of events? It could be a social event, a bachelor party, a marriage party, New Year party, someone got a job, promotion, these kind of events. There is a possibility that alcohol would be served and everyone would be drinking or using sometimes. And there is a possibility that if you go there, if this person who has this problem already has been sober for a long time but goes to that one party where everyone was drinking, gets tempted to drink, has that first drink, and you know what happens. I've given that example of a train going over a watermelon. That first wheel is going to crush you and the other wheels are just gonna go over it. So it is like that. That first drink, that first use is gonna cause you to go back to square one. So one needs to be aware of, avoid any such events. For mental health professionals also, they need to educate people going through these issues, that totally avoid them, because there's a possibility that you're going to use or drink and it will cost a lot. Any upsetting negative emotional states, as we discussed, are high risk situations in life. Some kind of a loss or something can also trigger a relapse. Meeting friends, we also discussed that. Lack of social support, no network, isolation can also lead to a relapse. And positive feelings, we also discussed that before on the previous slide. And not going to support groups, not attending counseling sessions, missing appointments, not attending any sort of support help groups is also a situation where one is highly likely to have a relapse. Now, coming to the most important things, one would not relapse if they never had any cravings. So it's important to know what cravings are. Cravings are very normal as a part of recovery. They will happen. They will come. It's very normal and natural. If one uh, continues to remain sober, they will have cravings every now and then, right? But one thing I would say about cravings is that cravings never last more than a few minutes. Even the most I would say a person who's been struggling would tell you that it is shattering. Of course, that they have intense cravings sometimes and they just give into it, but it's only for a few minutes, and sometimes best thing is to allow that cravings to happen and allow it to pass and not act on it. That's the best advice I would give, and that's the best advice counselors or professionals can give, that it just lasts for a few minutes. Just manage yourself for a couple of minutes and allow it to pass. So craving are two types. First, it could be physical and it could be psychological. Physical is you actually feel some kind of changes in your body, is like feeling of nervousness, agitation, restlessness, palpitations, sweaty hands, or sometimes it could be हाथ हिलते हैं जिसको बोलते हैं कि hand shake होना. ये सारी चीजें बहुत common है कि अभी मुझे I need a drink, I need to use because I'm really not feeling okay, I'm feeling something's happening. So these are some physical signs of having intense cravings. And psychological, most times सिर्फ साइकोलॉजिकल होता है, फिजिकल नहीं होता है, या फिर कभी कभार दोनों भी हो सकता है, फिजिकल एज वेल एज साइकोलॉजिकल. But substances where there's just psychological cravings, it's psychotherapy and counseling work the best here, I would say. And was fantasizing about using, convincing yourself that you will feel great. मैं एक पीऊंगा फिर नहीं पीऊंगा, बस एक बार एक ही drink. Promise, like they'll keep promising themselves and others that just one drink and I'll be fine, but they're actually fooling themselves. That first drink is not, you're not going to stop there. After that drink, you're going to drink more. So that is the problem, why they become an addict, because they can't stop fooling themselves that they'll be fine, just एक drink and I'll be fine. So these are certain psychological signs that they've been having intense cravings. Now, how do we manage these cravings? Of course, talk to your counselor, take psychological therapies, go talk to your therapist, talk to your doctors, or sometimes sponsors. Sponsors वो होते हैं जो अल्कोहलिक एनोनिमस या जो सपोर्ट ग्रुप्स में होते हैं, जो आपको कंटिन्यूसली हेल्प कर सकते हैं. तो उनसे बात करो. Try and talk to professionals as far as possible. That would be that they know what you're going through and they can direct you in the right way. So talk to your doctors, counselors, psychotherapists. Counseling really helps in managing cravings, and even for mental health professionals, counseling has to specifically look at managing cravings, different skills and different tools of managing cravings. So that really helps. Support groups help a lot. They have to talk about these cravings, label these cravings, that I really had an intense craving today, but I did not drink, I did not use. And when you share that in the group, it can be very reinforcing, because they're going to appreciate you for not giving in to your cravings. So going to a support group, support meeting helps a lot. That's how a long-term recovery, maintaining recovery takes place. They have to attend support groups to do something, because having something to do, some employment, some work, even voluntary work. Many people, many people going through these issues have faced a lot of issues. They're not able to maintain that job. Some people get fired because they've been absent for a very long time, late, etc. These reasons because of which it's a bit difficult to get back to work. So in that case, I would encourage them to start volunteering somewhere, that at least it's going to help you have that experience of work and not have that long gap between two employments. So voluntary work also should be encouraged, and one needs to do these things. And journaling is a very, very effective tool. Along with that, these days mindfulness has been a very effective tool, especially during the pandemic. Suddenly mindfulness has gained limelight, and everyone wants to practice mindfulness does help. So these are some ways in which one can manage cravings. As I said, cravings don't last for a long time. They usually come in a sort of a wave. They start slowly, then it becomes really intense and it drops. So understand cravings as waves, and they come and they go, and one has to just manage them, allow them to pass for a couple of minutes, and that's how one can maintain recovery and prevent a relapse or a slip happening. So these are some different ways in which one can seek help or can give help. This was from a point of view from a mental health professional. Also, areas in which they can look at. First, I would begin with where they are in the recovery. Go back, maybe have a look at the first webinar and see in which stage of recovery you are or one is, and then look at specific issues in that stage. For example, pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, uh, action, and then actual maintenance. And so these are stages that we saw in the first webinar. Look where you are in that stage of recovery and specifically focus on that. So with that, I would like to end my presentation for the day, but we would like to have Dr. Manjeet share his wisdom on how one can get treatment, how long the treatment is, and how they can prevent a relapse. So for first question, Dr. Manjeet, would be uh, Dr. Manjeet, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I'm ready to
So
continue.
yeah. So first question would be, if an addict follows through with detox, is it painful? This is a very common question.
Shilpa, thank you so much. And you have given a beautiful explanation, like what
Thank
happens, why the relapse occurs, which is very, very important to understand. Right? Now, to start with, most of the addicts, they have a feeling that detoxification, de-addiction is a very painful process because everybody has experienced it at one time or the other. And a patient or addict who's taking for the last so many months or years, one day he tries, okay, let me see if I can live without it.
Yeah.
Or the family says you have to go to a doctor, and he says, no, there's no need to go, I can leave it on my own. See, now onwards I am leaving, and you will see I'll be absolutely normal for the next so many days. I'm not addicted to it. So he leaves the drug for a day, and then within 24 hours the withdrawal starts.
Yeah.
And the withdrawal, and as 24 hours pass, in the next 36 hours the withdrawals, they are at the peak, and they are so bad and so much of pain. There is watering of the eyes, watering from the nose, sneezing, coughing, loose motions. There are goosebumps on the skin, and vomiting, absolutely no appetite. The body aches are so bad that the person is seeing tying ropes or other pieces of cloth to his in the area of the biceps or in the area of the calf muscles. You are
Yeah.
hitting your legs, you are running, you are fighting in the family, you may even kill a person. It
Yeah.
is so much painful that you understand that if you don't get the drug again, then probably you are going to pass out.
Yeah.
So this experience has been experienced by almost all the addicts at least once during the course of addiction. So now they understand if they go to a doctor, do they have to go through the same phase? So a large percentage of them will not like to go to a doctor because of the fear. And once they come to you, then there are so many things to ask. Doctor, तुझे guarantee देने हो, pain नहीं होएगी. How much will be the pain? My tolerance to the pain is very low.
Yeah.
If I have the pain, then I'm sorry, I'll have to run away. Last time it happened, I was in that hospital and this thing happened. So this is a very, very common question. And let me tell you, the latest techniques which we are having now, I don't say it is absolutely painless, but to a good extent, it is almost painless.
Yeah.
If you have any painful symptoms, we give you the SOS medicines. We have got very good injections. We have got very good medicines. So most of the addictions, unless or until you say your addiction level is too high and your body threshold, your pain threshold is very, very low, then your body is very weak and your willpower is very, very weak, then you can say you may have the experience of having some strong withdrawals. Otherwise, in good centers, if you are in the hand of an experienced de-addiction expert, most of the addiction is almost painless. Now, other question which the patient likes to have is, I have heard that once you try to leave the drugs, you may get paralyzed.
Yeah.
Or is important questions which have to be addressed at the beginning of the treatment. Unless or until you don't address it, unless or until the patient doesn't have confidence in you, he is not going to start with the treatment. But the best part, it is almost painless.
Yeah.
It depends what type of treatment we are doing. We can start with the next question.
Yeah. So next question would be, is it a long treatment? How long does normally a treatment last?
Yeah. Now this is again very, very important for the patient, because what happens is, you can say, let's talk globally now. Globally means India is a part of that. We have one type of treatment which is sponsored by all governments. That is called the OST, the oral substitute therapy.
Yeah.
So here we are going to substitute the illegal drugs for the legalized medicine. The patient comes to us. What you have said is the harm reduction.
Yeah.
Right? We advise the patient, counsel the patient. So there are so many centers which are being opened. Please don't use the illegal drugs. They have very, very bad side effects. They are very costly. The incidence of like sudden death from these drugs is very, very high. So let's go to a doctor who's qualified and he will give you the legalized medicines which are a substitute. We have to understand this is not the treatment. This is the substitute.
Yeah.
And the common medicines which are available for this is methadone. Again, methadone programs are prevalent throughout the world. Then we have the sublingual tablets of buprenorphine with naloxone. They are again being given throughout the world. Now these treatments are very long treatments. Most of the governments, they recommend that this can be given for a period of 1 to 2 years. Then you reassess the patient, and if you feel the patient still needs it, you can continue.
Yeah.
So that means it continues for a long duration. And then once the patient comes to you for de-addiction, he asks you, Doctor, jeep thole rakhan wali goli to nahi deoge ji, I have taken it for the last 2 years. And now the patient is taking it for a very, very long time. He goes to the doctor, tells him, ji mainu dawai de do, gets the medicine and starts eating. He takes medicine, he feels better. After some time, he feels okay. Now let me try if I can stop this medicine. So if he tries to stop at a higher dose, he starts having the withdrawal symptoms. Then he has two options. Should I restart my tablet, which is given by the doctor, or should I go into drugs for a few days? So he has two options and the patient has to choose. Most
Yes.
of the patients will say, okay, let's go back into the drugs. Let's see, because both are giving you the withdrawal symptoms. So it is very, very important that these medicines have to be taken under strict medical supervision and they should be continued for a shorter duration for best results.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
once the patient comes to my hospital, so I gave him an option of 2 or 3 treatments. So one treatment is I tell him that you can do the treatment on OPD basis. If I feel the patient is not such a heavy addict, his dose is not very high, or the patient is not willing to stay in the hospital, then he has one option of having on the OPD basis. So
Yeah.
now this OPD basis treatment is not done with buprenorphine or methadone. We have
Yeah.
other medicines,
Yeah.
and the average time which we recommend to the patient is for a period of 1 month.
Yeah.
The patient comes to us, various investigations are done, the counseling of the patient is done, the family counseling is done. We assess the willpower of the patient. And if we understand, yes, the patient has some willpower, the family is able to support the patient, and they will stand with the patient, then okay, we say, let's go in for the OPD treatment. Now,
Yeah.
majority of the patients, they will like to go in for this OPD treatment. Again, this OPD treatment is not very, very long treatment. The average time is 1 month, but this can be extended because now what happens, patient takes the medicine for a period of 10 days.
Yeah.
He stays at home. He is very happy. The family is happy. The patient is showing good signs of improvement. Now, the supervision by the family decreases now. The patient also says, yeah, why do you worry? See, I take the medicine regularly. I've started gaining weight. My sleep is coming back to normal. My appetite is coming back to normal. My behavior is coming back to normal. Now, why do you want to check me every time? Why do you want to uh, limit me? You stay in the house, stay, do this thing, do that. So a good number of times, the family members, they come in this
Yeah.
the trap which is laid by the patient.
Yeah.
So once the patient goes out, so the first thing is he receives a call from his old friends, or he is going to call them. Once he goes and meets them, their friends are going to say, "Bhai, बहुत अच्छी quality दी चीज आई है, just try only once." He may say, नहीं यार my doctor is giving me the treatment. I have promised my doctor, I have promised my wife, my parents that I will not go into this again. But I'm so sorry, you please continue. But then once he is sitting with them, once
Yeah.
he sees that they are having it, then the urge that comes into play. Yes, the entire, he goes into the flashback. This is the way we used to sit, we used to enjoy, we used to take, and ultimately he cannot resist himself. So
Yeah.
he has a relapse. He takes the drug. The family doesn't know for a few days, unless or until the family realizes that now every day this man is going out. And once he comes back, and then they understand that something is wrong with the patient, and then they get the patient to you. So doctor, the drug test karo ji.
Yeah.
We want to be sure whether he is taking your medicine or the illegal drug, because we suspect that he is again taking into it, because we have recently found it into his pocket or in the bed, or he's constantly calling his friends, or
Yeah.
we are seeing the same behavior is coming back.
Yeah.
So we do the test. Now the patient tells at the reception, I want to share something with the doctor alone. He comes to me, he says, doctor, please don't share this thing with my family, because then they are going to lose the trust. And then they will again put me so many limits, and then it becomes very difficult. But then we have to make him understand that if I don't share it with the family,
Yeah.
then you will go from bad to worse.
Yeah.
And finally, after so much thing, we share it with the family.
Yeah.
Now the patient promises कि ठीक है जी, गलती हो गई, I'm so sorry for it. Now please restart the treatment. So I will never go back into it. Now I say majority of the patients, say 75, 80% of the patients will like to go in for the OPD treatment
Yeah.
because it is comfortable for the family, for the patient, and the cost factor is also there. Now, of these patients, a good percentage of the patients are going to have a relapse.
Yes.
Not one time, but multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have seen so much that in 6 months, when the average treatment is of 1 month, in 6 months the patient has come to us 4 times, 5 times, every time saying, I'm so sorry, this happened, my cousin came, my friend came, he forced me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a fight in the family, they irritated me. He's going to tell you one excuse or the other, but the ultimate, the net result is that he is having continuous relapses.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you are fully committed, right, you religiously want to leave it, the family is fully supporting you, the family understands that these are the pros and cons, the ifs and the buts. You consult them very well and you tell them that if this thing happens, that means he's going in for a relapse. And if the patient is honest in taking the medicine, stays at home for a period of 1 month, shuts off his mobile, doesn't go out of the house, no friend comes to the house, and we continue this for 1 month plus, say 1.5 months, then yes, you can very well leave the drugs almost painlessly.
Yeah.
Now, once you leave the drugs, then the second part starts, which I'll come to you with after this. So,
Yeah.
this
Very
is
important point.
the longest treatment which is available with me. Now, other treatments are shorter. So we have one treatment which we again do with the help of medicines, right? So here the patient stays for about 4 to 5 days. We stabilize the patient. We see there are no withdrawals. Patient is okay. Sleep is normal. Appetite is normal. He is discharged from the hospital, right? But the medicine continues for 2 to 3 weeks. The only difference is that here we stabilize the patient and then send him. So we are regularly doing the counseling part of the family of the patient. Patient is more motivated, results are better. So now we come to the shortest treatment, which is the state-of-the-art treatment, which is known as the ultra-rapid opiate detox. So as the name indicates, UROD, one variety of this is which we are doing is the SANR. This is called the super accelerated neuron regulation. So here the stay of the patient is on an average 6 days plus minus 1 day. So the longest stay can be 7 days, the shortest can be 5 days. So SANR is done just once during this stay. The average time taken for this treatment is about 2 hours, but the patient remains in the SANR room for about 3 to 5 hours. So here what we do is, in one stroke, the patient is given GA, he is under general anesthesia. In one stroke, all the receptors, they are cleaned. The entire drug which is in the body, that is released from the receptors, and over a period of 12 to 24 hours, it comes out through the body through different routes. So the patient does not feel any pain during the process. The patient is in deep sleep, and within 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, he is sent back into the room. The patient may have some minor withdrawal symptoms, which we take care of. And the next morning, he is almost more than 90% normal. We continue the medicine for just 4 days. Once he is discharged from the hospital. So he is 6 days in the hospital, 4 days at home. We tell him after 10 days, now you can start your regular work. You are almost off the medicines. He might need some medicine for sleep or for mood stabilization for a few days. So this is the shortest treatment. And a good number of my patients who are NRIs or who come from the other states, they like to have this treatment. They will come straight from the airport. They'll
Yeah.
come to my hospital, stay for 5 to 7 days, get the treatment. They are okay. And now they want to continue their other things. They want to go to their own house over here, to their relatives, or they want to go to some hill station for a relaxation or anywhere. So shortest treatment is the 6-day treatment, and the longest treatment is the 1 month treatment. But it is very, very important that the patient and the family understands. The patient is strongly motivated and the family knows how to support the patient.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely true. Family plays a very important and crucial role here. One thing I would say is that families, especially in India, they sort of pressurize their family member to, uh, go for a rehab, or you have to remain clean once you've done a rehab. So things like that would just further damage them psychologically, and each and every family member needs to go for a long-term counseling, I believe. That is the way in which you can prevent a relapse, not by shaming that person or saying that setting unrealistic goals. Sometimes, you've done a rehab, you've paid a lot for this rehab, and if you relapse now, then you've had it. So setting realistic goals is also important. Educating that family that relapses happen, it's a very, very common thing, and it's part of recovery. Is very helpful, because then they will not pressurize that family member, and that uh, psychological rehabilitation has to happen from that person, from within that person. It's not like someone trying to pressurize them or forcing them to go through it. So that's one thing I've noticed in my practice as well, that force or pressure doesn't work at all. In fact, it's counterproductive. uh, the next question for you, doctor, is we've already answered, is it a short or a rapid treatment? Chances of relapse, probability of relapse, as you said, that's very common. It happens. And ways in which relapse can be prevented and one can maintain. And I've also seen that many of these people also have comorbid issues, other issues, psychological issues or health conditions that also need to be treated along with addiction. If someone has depression or other mental health conditions, also play a important role here. So what do you have to say on that?
Shilpa, before I come to this, I like to add one more thing for the viewers, which is very, very important.
Yeah.
Now, there are two types of setups. One is the de-addiction center, which I am running.
Yes.
Whatever I have told you is a de-addiction center where
Yeah.
we are going to treat a patient. Now, a second center is called rehab center or
Yeah.
a rehabilitation center. So
Yeah.
by definition, both are different.
Yeah.
The patient first goes to a de-addiction center.
Yeah.
Then after getting the de-addiction, now he has an option. He goes back to the family or he goes into a rehabilitation center.
Yeah.
So once why he goes into a rehab center is that now we want to increase the willpower of the patient. We want the patient to have meetings with the other patients like the alcohol anonymous, the narcotic anonymous, or the cocaine anonymous. We want to interact with the other. Then we want to very, very counseling, and the willpower has to be increased to that extent that now the patient has to go back into the society. He will
Yes.
be facing the same type of people, right? But what happens is that now you need to have the rehab center of that level where you can transform a patient.
Yeah.
You have to transform. It is not just giving counseling and sitting with him and telling him to play some sports. That is rehabilitation. You have to transform a patient. So what happens is that now the patient stays there for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
Some of the patients, they come to me, they tell me कि मेरे family ने मेरे ना बहुत थका दिया, and they have done a very bad thing with me. They forcibly admitted me to the rehab center, and I was not given the due respect, or the due courtesy was not shown to me. I was roughed up over there. There was nobody to listen to me. My family was far away. I was not able to speak to them. So a good percentage of the patients, they have grudges with the family members.
Yes.
Now what happens, what I have seen in my practice is, they tell me the patient was in the rehab for 3 months. He came, supposing he came 10 days back or 5 days back. He came home. The moment he came home, he started throwing abuses at the family. You have done this, you have done this, I will take revenge from you. He
Yes.
goes to the market, calls his friend, buys the drug, sits in front of the family and takes the drug. And
Yeah.
then tells them, now do you want to send me again? If yes, send me again. Next time I'll be even worse than this.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very big problem which I have seen with so many patients, because the patient understands, because once the patient comes to a de-addiction hospital, he stays with the family member. He stays in a proper room with the AC, with all the facilities. He can talk to the family members. He can go on a stroll. He can watch TV. He can talk to anybody. But there are certain limitations in a rehab center. The patient doesn't enjoy at his will, because you follow the norms of a particular institution. So then the grudges are built up, and that is a very bad scenario, that after coming from there, within 24 hours you have a relapse.
Yeah.
So once you send a patient to a rehab, you again have to counsel the patient. You have to tell him, I am doing this for the betterment. You will be deprived of these privileges. These are the positive things which are going to be imbibed in you. And once he becomes ready for that, then you have to send him. Whereas going to a de-addiction center, the stay is not very long.
Yeah.
And patient is enjoying all the comforts which he is enjoying at his home. He wants to have a pizza, he wants to have non-veg food, he wants to have a burger. So he's eating everything at home.
Yeah.
Now I'm coming to the next question, that is the relapse. But that how we can prevent the relapse. Now, we have been discussing, we have been reading, we have been seeing. Relapse is an integral part of the addiction program.
Absolutely.
Because the society where we are living, the availability of drugs, the availability of alcohol is so much, the flow of money in your hands is so much, that anytime you wish to have it, it is not a big deal. You just have to pick up your phone, call a person, and within a few minutes you get it, you have it, that's all, and you are back to square one. Now, the most important thing is, patient comes to you, the family says, the other 5 बार इलाज करा चुके हैं, 6 बार इलाज करा चुके हैं. It is now 10 times, we are fed up. He comes out, he is okay, he takes the treatment, he is okay for a few weeks to 1 month, 2 months, and then again he relapses.
Yeah.
Now, when we say that the patient is joining a de-addiction program, it is not that you just detox a patient, that is the end of it. Everybody is happy. The patient was taking heroin, he was taking cocaine, he was taking alcohol, he was taking opium. Now he has left it. The medicine given by the doctor has come drastically down. The patient is now having a normal life. That is not the end to it. That is just the beginning of the next phase.
Yes.
Now is the phase, the patient will, if you go in the natural course, he will go into the relapse.
Yes.
So at this stage, it is very, very important to prevent the relapse, to maintain this phase of detoxification. And yes, counseling is very, very important. Rehabilitation is very, very important. Social support is very important. emotional support is very important. The economic support is very important.
Yeah.
Then the support from the friends is very important. No critical comments have to be given by the
Yeah.
family members. The
Yeah.
family has to be trained how to deal with the patient. The
Yes.
patient has to be trained how to deal with the urge. Now, this is one part. This is
Yeah.
one part. And at any stage, if there is a critical comment, if there is a stress, if the patient gets an opportunity, there is every possibility he will go into relapse.
Yes.
Now, how do we ensure this? That the patient wants to take the drug, the patient is getting an opportunity to take the drug, but we still want to maintain the remission. So now comes the step 2. Step 1 we have discussed. Now
Yeah.
step 2 comes into action. Now there is one medicine which is internationally available by the name of naltrexone.
Yes.
So this naltrexone is what we call as, in layman's term, it is anti-opiates. It has
Yeah.
also a proven role in cocaine. It
Yeah.
has also a definite role in alcohol,
Yeah.
right? So the most difficult part is that when do you start naltrexone? Because if the patient is on drugs, you cannot start. If
Yeah.
the patient is on treatment part, you cannot stop because the treatment part has the medicine which has a component of opiates with it.
Yeah.
So if you are taking opiates, if the patient is on alcohol,
Yeah.
then this is going to react. It will give you a painful reaction. So
Yeah.
if you want to start naltrexone, it is very, very important that the drug, the illegal drug or the medicine, the legal medicine which is prescribed by your doctor has to be stopped
Yeah.
for a period of at least 7 days. Or what we are doing, the SANR treatment. Here in a period of 6 days, we have detoxed the patient and we have started on the 7th day, we have started the naltrexone treatment. Because in that period of 3 to 4 hours and within the next 12 hours, the entire drug which was in your body has been excreted out. Your
Yeah.
body is absolutely clean. If
Yeah.
you do a dope test, you are clean and your
Yeah.
body will accept naltrexone.
Yeah.
So now this naltrexone is available in 3 different forms. Right? Now you have an option to take. It is available in the oral form. In the tablet form, 1 tablet to be taken every day for a minimum period of 6 months. This is the minimum period.
Yeah.
You can continue depending upon the liver function or the other tests. You can continue it for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It depends.
Yeah.
Second is it is available in the injection form. Now the injection form is that is a depot form. It has the injection works for 1 month. It is given intramuscularly. It gives an action for 1 month. You repeat after 1 month. Again for a minimum of 6 months to can be extended. Now the third, which is available nowadays, but not freely available, is the implant. So the
Yeah.
implant is again known as, some people call it a chip. It is a small tablet which is programmed, which is inserted into the body. It has a life of 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months.
Yeah.
So after that, you don't have to take it out. It dissolves automatically. So once you take naltrexone, it is going to have a positive effect for the opiates, for alcohol, and for cocaine.
Yeah.
Number 1 is it is going to decrease your urge.
Yeah.
Second is, supposing a patient is taking naltrexone, right?
Yeah.
Now, patient takes the drug due to any reason he takes the drug. Now, naltrexone is going to block the effect of that drug because the receptors where the drug is to be attached to give you that pleasure and euphoria, that is being occupied by naltrexone. The naltrexone has formed a barrier
Yeah.
between the receptors in the brain and
Yeah.
the drug which you are taking. You take the drug that enters your body, it is present in the blood, but it is not able to stick to the receptors because of the naltrexone barrier. So it is not showing its result.
Yeah.
You take a drug, you don't feel the high, you don't get the pleasure, you don't get the kick, you don't get the euphoria, and you understand eh, ki ho gaya, what has happened, and
Mhm.
you try to increase the dose. Ki let me have more of this. Maybe this much is not giving me the effect. So there are some. So once you give naltrexone, again you have to do a good counseling of the patient. You
Yeah.
have to make the patient understand that once you are on naltrexone, the drug is not going to give you the effect. But if you try to take more drug, the
Yeah.
drug is after all entering your body. It is not sticking to the receptors, but it is entering your body. It is acting on your other systems. It
Yeah.
is acting on your respiration. It is going to depress your respiration.
Mm.
It can be lethal if you say, I have to get the result. A normal patient who was taking heroin, half a gram or 1 gram, after the naltrexone, he takes 1 gram, it doesn't get the effect. He repeats, doesn't get the effect. He repeats, doesn't get the effect. He has to understand now 3 grams has gone into your body.
Yeah.
You are not getting the effect just because of the implant, but the damage that 3 grams will do immediately, you have to understand that. And
Yeah.
for that, the patient has to be consulted beforehand, before
Yeah.
you start with the naltrexone. And in a good number of patients, we are seeing that the patient is going to react now. Patient is going to react with naltrexone. The patient takes the drug. The
Yeah.
family gives the tablet of naltrexone next morning. The drug is available it is present in the blood. It has
Mm.
attached to the receptors. Naltrexone is given. The naltrexone is going to displace it, and the patient will go into severe withdrawal.
Mm.
Right? The patient gets afraid. What has happened to me? I was
Yeah.
okay. I was enjoying it. It has gone into sudden withdrawal. The family goes into a panic mode. But we have told them very clearly, if the patient takes, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So now the patient learns that if he takes the drug with this, it is going to produce a very bad reaction on him. So there are a good number of patients in whom naltrexone is very, very effective. Either the patient does not get the effect of drugs, or the patient gets a reaction where he gets very, very panicky, and then he promises, the next time I'm not going to try this
Yeah.
because the reaction was so painful. I had so much of pain. I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
So this treatment is a very good treatment. The only requirement is that you have to reach the stage of initiation of naltrexone, and a thorough counseling of the patient and the family has
Yeah.
to be done. Now,
Yeah.
another very important thing is that once the patient has left,
Yeah.
once the patient is detoxified, he's taken naltrexone, the family tries to keep him in the house, he is under super. The rehabilitation is very, very important. The confidence in the patient is very, very important. So then meditation is very, very important because you have to stabilize the mind of the patient.
Yeah.
Sports activities is very, very important because the excess energy has to be channelized.
Yeah.
Counseling, of course, we have talked about that. The yoga, meditation, sports, then rehabilitation of the patient. So these are very, very important things. And if you have to understand that addiction is an illness.
Yeah.
It is not just one thing. You treat a patient, he's okay, he said, thank you, doctor, and thank you, patient. You have been very cooperative. You have to follow the patient for weeks, for months, and even for years together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It,
we have opened a public health. We have a website. It's www.leavedrugs.com. LEAVEDRUGS.com. So we have given a very detailed analysis, a detailed vision. What are drugs? How do you become addicted? if you want to leave drugs, what are the options available to you? If you want to start with naltrexone, when do you start? What in what form you have to take naltrexone? So we have tried to create public awareness, and we wish that through various platforms, and yours is a very good platform, the
Yes.
message goes to more people so that they understand that de-addiction is not a painful process.
Yeah.
De-addiction is not a very lengthy process,
Yeah.
and the relapse can be definitely prevented.
Yeah. 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 So, last question would be effects on and what should a caregiver do? Caregiver's role
Pardon?
in treatment.
Can you repeat the question?
So, last question is effects on and what should a caregiver do?
Caretaker.
Yes, caregiver, okay.
You
Someone
know,
or a family
yes.
member.
Somebody, if there is like somebody has an illness in the family, somebody has an accident in the family, somebody has a heart attack in the family, he is immediately rushed to the hospital. He stays in the hospital for a few days. He comes back home, recovery starts, everything comes back to normal. Everybody is happy within a period of few days or weeks, everybody is back to normal. Now, when the illness is addiction,
Yeah,
and when you know that this is a relapsing illness,
yeah,
in spite of your best efforts, in spite of your best counseling, in spite of the best doctors, the patient might have a relapse.
yes,
Unless or until all steps are done, all important things they are put into one bag. So this the entire family is in a distress mode.
yeah,
Everybody is worried. Nobody wants to leave the house. They want to keep the patient under supervision. Somebody is telling them time and again, I've seen your son or daughter. He was with that person. He was having this drug. Then when you come home, you see patient in the same situation. So all your players of life, all your like you come tired, and you see that the stress is from morning till evening. The caregiver is tired of giving you the medicines. He's tired of giving you the counseling because there is a fear that at any step you might have a relapse. At
yeah,
any step you might cheat me. But then you can't say I'm not going to support my patient. I'm
yeah,
not going to help my patient. I'm going to keep my patient in the same situation because we have failed for a period of 3 times or 4 times. So it is very, very important that the caretaker is given intensive counseling.
yes,
He or she has to understand this is a long process. You need to have patience. The patient is going to show outburst, anger, irritability, but the moment you react in the same way, you give a critical comment, you have an outburst on the patient, then everything is going to be spoiled.
yeah, yeah,
So caretaker, whether it is the spouse, whether it is father, mother, sister, brother, your son, daughter, so they have to be, for them, counseling is very, very, very important.
yeah,
Patience is the key for that.
yeah,
And
absolutely. Especially because there's a lot of stigma and shame attached. It's very
yes,
difficult for family members to not do anything about and let this person do whatever they want, or it's difficult to see their family member going through this and then getting shamed for that. So family members also go through a lot of psychological stress as well as issues. So
very
family
much.
counseling is very important. There have been situations where a family member themselves go through clinical depression, and that also needs to get treated. So it's as I said, family plays a huge role in maintaining, and anything that has force or pressure is going to rebound. So that was very nicely put by you, doctor, and thank you very much for sharing your insights about the physiological and the medical side of recovery. And let's hear it from our participants if they have to share
Yeah, if there is
anything.
any question, yes, surely I like to
Yeah,
answer.
yeah, yeah. So,
Thank you to Shilpa and to Dr. Saini for this very, very informative uh, webinar and giving us so much of and throwing so much light on the aspect of recovery, which is, I think, something that each family who has somebody who's dealing with the problem of addiction is going through. So
yeah.
I'd like to invite any questions. I would request our participants to unmute and ask a question.
I think everybody is happy listening, and they
Yeah.
must be
I
glad
think,
by
I
now.
think maybe you didn't leave any scope for any questions because everything has been taken up in such a detailed way.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just like to tell all our viewers that uh, that counseling is an extremely important part of the whole process, right from moving from denial to accepting of the problem to understanding the different psychological and social and physical dimensions of the problem, understanding the kind of family issues that are associated with the problem of addiction, understanding all the emotional turmoil that not only the person who is suffering from the addiction but also the family members go through. I think reaching out to a counselor is extremely important. Please do visit sageadvice.in for counseling support. And please also follow us on our different social media handles. Can we have the last slide with all the social media handles of Sage Advice?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and do visit us at sageadvice.in. And also keep watching our YouTube videos, which deals with different issues related to emotional and social well-being. And keep coming back for our webinars. Thank you
Hello.
so much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I think we have one question. Yes, Vishal, you want to
Yeah.
ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, like
Go ahead.
in first session, it was said that the first step for addiction is trying or experimenting. So, like I am at the age of 22.
Yeah.
So, like in this age, everybody tries alcohol. So, how should person try alcohol and not be addicted?
A very important
Or
time
we should
question.
not try that?
Yes, Shilpa or Dr. Seni who would like to answer it. He's saying that young people always experiment when they go to college or with friends. They always experiment with alcohol or some other substances
Like we
to
planned that once we get placed, we will drink.
have a party.
Yeah.
Yes, peer
But due to
pressure
Corona,
is
I haven't
always
tried that.
there. Yeah, this is a very important question, I must say, because this is a time when everybody likes to experiment. There are parties, there are celebrations, the peer pressure is there. Yes, you can start it, but you have to understand a few things which are very, very important. Number one, who is your role model? It is very, very important who is your role model. If your role model is a person who takes 4 drinks, 6 drinks, 8 drinks, then please change your role model, or don't start alcohol because you are going to achieve the same level in a very short time. Second, is there a family history of addiction? Strong addiction, like somebody taking 2 packs, 3 packs. The normal healthy drinking is you take 60 to 90 ml in one day for a period of 3 days in 1 week. So that is what you have to understand, whether you want to follow the rat race where everybody says, let's have one shot. Then the other person comes, let's have another shot. Then they say one for the road. Then they say one for him, one for her. So if you follow this pattern, and if your group is which enjoys drinking till they fall down, then I'm sorry to say, then this is a very, very bad start, and the chances of addiction to alcohol will be very, very high. You have to read about it, how alcohol affects your body, how alcohol affects your brain, how easily you can become dependent upon alcohol. You have to understand that some of you, the alcoholics in your family, in your neighborhood, you see on the roadside, you read about them, you see in the TV. You have to understand that why have they become alcoholics? Why do they spend most of the time here? Then another very important thing is that you don't have to drink alcohol because you feel you are free now. You feeling that I come back from my office at 6 o'clock, I have nothing to do, I am leading a bachelor's life. What should I do? You call your friend, भाई क्या कर रहा है? He says, यार free हूँ, बोर हो रहे हैं. तो कहता फिर आजा मेरे पास. तो चलो, let's have a drink. Or tomorrow somebody else calls. So alcohol is not meant to pass your time or to kill your time. Your priorities have to be very, very clear. I am drinking it for celebration only. I am drinking it for social occasions only. I am drinking out if this person has a birthday, he's throwing a party. This is my limit. Every person has to set a limit. It is not that don't worry, abhi start kiya, I understand. You have to set your limit. I can take 60 ml, 90 ml, 100 ml. Beyond 90 ml, then you have to see this is a risky limit now. So it is very, very important. You set your limit. Your role model is defined. You don't drink alcohol to kill your time or you pass your time. And you are not, you don't just drink alcohol. You are watching the TV. You need something for munching. Or you feel today you are very, very happy. You have to celebrate. Today you are depressed. You want to celebrate. Today the boss said something. So it is a very stressful situation. You have to drink. Today somebody has given a good news. Today the girl said hello to you. So you want to drink. So don't make every day an occasion for celebration and take alcohol. I think Shilpa can add more from the psychological point of view.
Yeah, I think it's very important for you to analyze yourself. If you see yourself that your quantity of drinking is increasing and frequency is increasing, then I would say contact someone on Sage Advice, seek help right away if that's happening, and seek help if you think that is interfering in your daily life. You can't imagine a party or a weekend without drinking. Then I would say take counseling. It's all right if you don't think that it's that bad, but it might go in that direction. And if you feel that okay, I have any other issues that I need to address, then also seek counseling is what I would say.
Thank you, Shilpa. Any more questions? So I'd like to end by saying that I remember attending a meeting, an AA meeting once, long time back when I was a student. And what struck me the best was their prayer, which really is that they take one day at a time.
Yeah.
So here's asking for God's blessings on all of us to help us deal with whatever problems we are dealing with one day at a time.
Yeah.
And so from Sage Advice, this is Pallavi Khanna, and thank you all for attending the webinar. And we hope to be back with a lot of meaningful content, a lot of meaningful subjects and topics that need to be explored in depth, which will help everybody lead happier and better lives. Thank you and have a safe evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.